Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vance.
This newspaper demands that Spider-Man be arrested and prosecuted.
We've got Chris.
I wish I'd been there to see it. Gilligan's Island, the monkeys. You're lucky to have lived them.
I was born in 1973.
Welcome to the show. That was a somewhat of a quote from Captain America. We're reading the Winter Soldier stuff by Ed Brubaker, and then we're also going to go to Amazing Spider-Man from the beginning. We're going to read those one by one. So, a couple of new beginnings here for us today. Welcome. Captain America, Winter Soldier. This was the Winter Soldier really has become such a integral part of the Marvel universe for something that was essentially created in 2004 by Ed Brubaker. Is that the right year that I got here?
That's correct.
After all the Avengers Disassembled stuff had kind of settled down, after all the House of M hadn't happened here, right?
No, so their event for summer 2004 was Disassembled. I believe the event for 05 was House of M. So this is right in the middle where basically most of the Marvel books ended and then started new numberings. So Avengers ended with issue 503 and then restarted with New Avengers. And I think Bendis had taken over at that point. And then Captain America had ended a long run, and Iron Man had also ended a long run. Iron Man's run that came back right at this exact same month would have been the Extremis arc, which is kind of the basis for Iron Man 3.
With that real digital art to it, right?
Right, with Adi Granoff, who ended up being an Iron Man concept artist. And then Ed Brubaker took over Captain America with the new #1. So, I mean, and I get the feeling also this was a lot of new blood in Marvel at this point. Specifically the Ultimate Universe people taking over the Marvel Universe proper. Because Bendis, Mark Millar had been very heavily instrumental in starting the Ultimate Universe, kind of the reboot universe of the MCU or Marvel. And then they took over with Avengers and then started bringing in a lot of those things. So this was my first book I read of Captain America. I went back and reread a little bit of the previous run right before it because I think John Cassaday had been doing a lot of art on it. He was the Astonishing X-Men artist around that time. And then Robert Kirkman wrote a couple arcs. And it was published by Marvel Knights also under the Marvel Knights imprint, which was Joe Quesada's kind of side venture.
The slightly more the street level and a little grittier.
Right.
For teens.
Dave Gibbons was writing it also. Dave Gibbons was the Watchmen artist.
The artist on Watchmen, weird.
Right, who we met. Okay. Robert
That's
Kirkman.
right, we met him.
but Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead, when Walking Dead was just getting started and Invincible was just getting started, was the Captain America writer right before this, and it was kind of whatever. I really wasn't into Captain America this time. I viewed him perhaps incorrectly as the Boy Scout who didn't have interesting stories to tell.
I think that may be what he was for a long time. I think this is probably one of the most well-known Captain America runs in modern memory, if not the most well-known one.
It's highly. I feel like I'm now realizing that a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is highly, highly influenced by Marvel comics 04 to 2015.
Definitely.
The Iron Man movies are very heavily influenced by that extremist thing. I didn't even realize, we didn't say this last episode, but Carol Danvers didn't become Captain Marvel till 2015, which I didn't realize. Yeah. Maybe 2012. I might have my numbers wrong, but she was never Captain Marvel until this decade. So or last decade.
Yeah, she had a Miss Marvel series that was actually going on concurrent or maybe just after Captain America that we're reading. I think it was 2005.
Right.
But that lasts 100 issues. But anyway, I do think Captain America is a weird one because he doesn't really have there were periods in the 80s where he would sort of have supporting casts when Mark Gruenwald was writing him. But he's not like Spider-Man where he's I've got my civilian life I have to balance. He's basically just a super spy. And so you can do different kinds of stories, but you can't do oh no, I have a date tonight, but also I have to save, whatever from the Red Skull. It's not that kind of book. I do feel like it finds its legs as a TV thriller type thing, which is what they're going for here.
Right, yeah. And Brubaker specifically, I remember in interviews at the time was citing the Jim Steranko run of Captain America,
which we read some of, right?
It's only 3 issues. We read all of it. But I think Ed Brubaker like got it because he was an Army brat and he just happened to get those particular issues, and they blew his mind. And you can kind of see a lot of the imagery in this arc evokes the Steranko run, especially like them going through like the sewers and stuff. Is like looks exactly like that arc.
Right. Well, and we'll get to it, but the last issue, it's different art, but it's very much it feels like a Steranko. Like it's all about a head trip, and there's a bunch of like people being off model on purpose and like ghosts, and it's a very trippy issue.
Yeah, I'm into it.
So,
I think are we ready to just jump into the story? And remember, at the end, we're going to go into Amazing Spider-Man. I know we're planning to do at least the first year of Amazing Spider-Man, 1 issue at a time. Maybe we'll do more. Well, we'll see how things go here. But listen out for that at the end of the episode. But yeah, I think we're ready to jump straight into Captain America here. Let's do it. So, did we mention the artist Steve Epting is the art on this? We indeed.
So
yeah, really
good.
nice.
Like I think that's what really like got me. Is I think that this first issue is such a great showcase for Steve Epting, especially like in the later scenes with like in the modern day nighttime with the Red Skull. The way he draws the Red Skull like blew my mind in 04. I'm like, God damn, this is fucking good art. Because I had never seen Epting. Chris, I'm sure you had from Cross Gen.
Yes, I had been reading him at Cross Gen, and I had actually been a fan of his in the 90s. He did Age of Apocalypse, X Factor, and he did kind of various X like B-level books, and I always liked his art. But around CrossGen, when he started doing like the digital stuff, he wasn't just kind of tracing, but you could see there's like a kind of a digital overlay. I thought it was the coolest thing, and it still looks great today. Unlike a lot of Greg Land art from the time, I think this holds up pretty well.
And
I think it does, yeah.
I think also like I know Epting is a great artist. I also have to give a lot of props to Frank Darmada, who's the colorist on this book. That I think the way the color choices he makes for this book, I think, are really spot on. And Epting's always had pretty good artists from this point forward. Chris, I just read that Sarah book by Garth Ennis and Epting with the colors by Betty Breitweiser. And man, that book looks really good too. I would even say like I thought that Epting's art was really great in 04, but man, his art's still getting better.
Yeah, he's very good. So yeah, it's. And we've done Brubaker before, haven't we?
We did Criminal recently last year. I know that.
Yes.
And Brubaker Phillips, and we've done Gotham Central, I'm sure.
Yeah, so he had done Batman, and then Batman led into Gotham Central, where he's doing more like crime books. And so I think it makes a ton of sense that like when he comes to Marvel, he gets Captain America and Daredevil, and so he writes like a crime book, and he writes Captain America is more of the like 24 seems to be a big influence on this book.
That probably makes sense why I liked it so much because I loved 24 back in this era.
I still never watched that show.
I would not recommend.
I would not recommend it, but at the same time, like I think season 5 won the best drama series for Emmy. And it's crazy over the top soap opera action thing. So I might recommend 24 season 5 and only that season.
Okay. maybe one day we'll get to it. But yeah, okay. Let's really jump into the story now. We start off with a flashback from like 5 years ago where the Red Skull is talking to this Russian guy named Lukin. That's him, right?
Yep, Lukin.
And they're making deals and stuff. They're killing people. You know how it is with these criminals. And then he sees that Lukin has was it Lukin? He has a Russian guy is what I called him. Russian guy has a dude in a big giant test tube, like one of those vats. Oh my God, who is it? Got like a metal arm. Mm-hmm. At this point, nobody knows this is like Bucky, Winter Soldier, or anything. So we're just like, who is this dude? I can't believe you have him.
Yeah, it's
Red
just
Skull.
like you have this weapon. This is awesome. Like I've only heard about this thing, which is always fun, from like a storytelling perspective. Even the Red Skull doesn't know all about it, but he knows a hint of it. Very cool.
Yeah. And the Russian guy's like, I'll trade you for the Cosmic Cube. And he's like, I don't have the Cosmic Cube. If I did, I would not trade you for this guy because the Cosmic Cube is like super powerful. So, bam, we got a lot of stuff set up right here at the beginning. We fast forward 5 years ahead to the present day. And he does have the Cosmic Cube. Ooh, a little glass case.
God, I love this night lighting. I love the color choices. That panel with him like holding the glass up, and just these are all my panel of the week.
It's great. He's like drinking; it's just dripping down his skull. Beautiful.
Yeah.
We have Captain America. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you, Cap. You're not gonna see this coming." Meanwhile, Cap throughout this whole book is kind of having a lot of bad dreams, remembering his past, like from before he was frozen in World War II, when like remembering all the ways that he and Bucky that Bucky died, and he's like, wait, that's not correct. That's not how that happened. He's worried that the Cosmic Cube is messing with his memories. So that's just kind of through line that's going through it all. He's also got his girlfriend Sharon Carter, the niece of Peggy Carter. She's Agent 13. And she's worried about him, naturally. She's like, hey, you're getting more extreme ever since the Red Skull got loose. I'm worried about you. He's like, hey, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But we get a real nice flashback sequence to when he was very recently taken down these terrorists who were trying to explode Coney Island. Yeah. And he was very extreme in doing so. And this is where the art really does, I think, get a chance to shine. A lot of the big action sequences don't have too many dialogue boxes or text boxes or anything all over them. He really does let the art just kind of speak for itself throughout these. So a lot of really nice panels of him taking out these goons who were like from AIM, right?
AID,
AIM?
Advanced Ideas and Destruction, an offshoot, as it were. I remember reading this, and I think I specifically got this issue right before Thanksgiving, and then was driving in the back of my parents' car to Thanksgiving. I remember reading this issue, just loving it. But I think the way it's framed, ground level, this makes it less Superman Boy Scout kind of concept and less inspirational. It's kind of grimy. I don't know why the panel of the dude's, just the bottom of the dude's boot and the detail of the combat boot of one of the villains he's fighting. I don't know why that was man, this is gritty and realistic. 2004 Vince was all over this. I don't know why. This issue really got me. I loved this issue.
I mean, I'm looking at that panel now. It's a very detailed picture of a shoe. Not gonna lie.
I don't know why, but I loved it.
I do think it's doing a great job because it's introducing Red Skull, and then there's a big twist, I guess, at the end of this issue. But it's introducing Red Skull, it's introducing Cap, and it's also introducing Sharon, who that basically is the supporting cast along with Nick Fury, which I think is smart because you're setting up she's going to be his handler. They have a history, so even if you're not a comic super fan where you're well, actually they dated in Captain America number 235, it's all kind of given to you. Cap is getting more extreme. This is a post 9/11 world, obviously, as he's throwing terrorists off of trains, which is a little extreme for Captain America. And they're saying they're bringing up the points that you bring up every Batman movie, yeah, you put that guy in traction, he might die, and he's like, whatever, I stopped a terrorist attack, didn't I?
But it doesn't come off as whiny as when Peter Parker, you've gone crazy this issue, I hate those stories in Spider-Man, but for some reason this one works for me.
Yeah. Well, it's because she's also not trying to tell him hey, you're super wrong. It's hey, just be careful out there. I'm noticing you're being a little different. That's all. Right.
And he is an actual, on the one hand he's a superhero, but he is a representative of SHIELD or the government or whatever. So he has a license to kill, I would assume, if he has to. Mm-hmm. Although he does say later that it wasn't his job in the war, that it was someone else's job.
Someone else's job. So after all this, Steve goes home. He walks through this wall where it's a laser that looks in his eye, and so he's super safe. But throughout, over all this, the Red Skull is monologizing. Is that the right word?
Yes. He also walks past. You see a weird-looking guy walk past Captain America in his not Captain America outfit and Sharon, and then later you see the mask on the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's he knows where he lives.
Yeah, he lives in a Brooklyn apartment, which I think is established in the Winter Soldier movie. Also, Cap lives kind of quietly in Brooklyn. Well, he's a kid from Brooklyn, I guess.
Kid from Brooklyn, yeah. Just a kid from Brooklyn. There was that little statue near my apartment for a little while. Just a kid from Brooklyn. But we've got... Yeah, so the Red Skull is talking about all this. He's, holding the cube, talking to Lucan. He's like, hey, I've got the cube now, but I ain't giving it to you. Ha, ha, ha. And then somebody shoots the Red Skull. Oh, my God. What? Picks up the Cosmic Cube. Who is it? Who was it? Oh, my God. Wow.
And they pick up the Red Skull's Nokia phone.
Did they? How do we know it's a Nokia? It does look like a Nokia.
Flip phone.
Yeah.
It's not even flip phone.
It's not. It's
one
not
of those ones that
flip,
had the little screen covers that you could buy on street vendors and mall vendors.
I do.
yeah.
You can even see the detail of like the antenna that you can extend if you want to. I love it.
Yeah, Red Skull's gonna butt dial he's gonna butt dial Crossbones so many times with that phone.
I will say though,
this
did blow my mind because I mean the whole issue
Yeah.
you're like this is gonna be a Red Skull machination, and then it's like somebody has killed the Red Skull. That's now a dude in the shadows. Again, these are all these tropes that are somehow working for me that don't work anywhere else. But yeah,
the dude isn't just in the shadows. The dude is like doing stuff. He's not just sitting back going like, just wait or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
It's like he's active and we just don't see who it is.
Right. And we do know that it's, Lufkin that's ordered this hit that's trying to get the cube back. So we are setting up this new Russian guy as a villain. But the mystery is who's his sniper that killed the Red Skull.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very good hook that the last page is just a full page spread. I don't think there's any. Oh yeah, there's a tiny little dialogue bubble that's just like he's dead, as Red Skull's just sitting there on the floor in a pool of blood. You're like, oh, okay.
We also learned in the next issue, we learned that the Red Skull's current body was a clone of Steve Rogers. Is that right? Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
But I like how they lay that out. Like, I mean, it's everything that they're like establishing with like characterizations like that you may or may not know from comic book history. Because again, this is the first Captain America like solo book I've ever read, and my only interactions with Captain America really are the Ultimates at this point, which is obviously a different continuity. But they just establish things well. Like Sharon is like, something's wrong, and I can tell something's wrong, and they might not know, but I know because I know you well. I'm like, she knows him well. And even this is like, he's got the same body as a view as a clone of Captain America, and Cap's like, yeah, I know. So I like those little touches.
Right. Yeah. It's silly like comic book continuity stuff, but it doesn't really take you out of it. It's just like, okay, the writer knows this stuff about the character, but they're not going to like spend too much. It's just basically they need to do a blood test on Captain America to make sure that that this is his clone that's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a big part of this issue really is just kind of like them discovering it and what's going on. Crossbones, who you mentioned, was working for the Red Skull, and so he's waiting to hear back from him and not getting any word. And the troops that they're with him, or I don't know, troops, whatever you call them, the goons that are with him are getting kind of worried, like, why haven't we gotten the call yet?
Yeah. The Red Skull was going to have like a massive terrorist attack in like 3 different cities that's going to power the cube or heal it or something, but obviously that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Crossbones is like, well, what are we going to do? And then eventually he's like, well, let's do it anyway.
And so Captain America and Sharon go into the sewers like you were talking about to try and find them and everything. There's not a whole lot that actually happens in this issue right here. They fight a few goons.
Yeah, I think that first issue is like a really good like tone setter, and then this issue is it's not killing time, but it's not really moving things forward, and it's definitely not as good as the first issue.
But it is sort of that necessary, like, hey, this is who the Red Skull was. This is my history with him. This is a few more flashbacks, and am I remembering everything correctly?
Yeah, it does set up, that we're going to have flashbacks basically every issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really cool, actually. The flashbacks, I honestly thought were going to be in the Captain America 2 movie, and they had floated having them at one point because it just gives you more flavor of like what Cap's life looked like in the 40s. I obviously didn't see, because I'm stupid, I didn't see this Bucky revival coming, mostly because Bucky was one of those people that like wasn't supposed to come back ever from the dead, kind of like Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy. So I didn't see him being revived. I just thought like, oh, we're just getting more back history of Captain America, and it's like being able to like allow stories to like ferment by showing more flashbacks that maybe we can then have Baron Zemo come into this book later. That's where I thought that they were doing. And all the flashbacks are also done by Michael Lark, who collaborated with Brubaker on Gotham Central, as well as he did Lazarus with Greg Rucka, but he did the Daredevil run with Brubaker the following year.
I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't realize they were different.
I didn't realize
different art. I just saw the different coloring.
Yeah, it's a different artist, and you can tell because there's a few issues from now that's like almost all flashback, and it looks like it's definitely like giving Epting a break.
Makes sense. Yeah, we are jumping a little bit ahead to some of the final thoughts, but at the same time, like we know it's Bucky. It's hard to read this without knowing it's Bucky, right? But when you are reading this, just kind of like the mystery is not about, hey, who is this person from my past who has come back? The mystery is what's going on with my memories. And so we're seeing a lot of his memories, which gives us Which just lets us see Bucky so that we know what's going on when Bucky does show up. It doesn't focus on Bucky, but it makes sure we keep knowing about Bucky.
Yeah, and I mean, this book is sold as Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but at the time it was sold as Captain America: Out of Time, which was more focused on Cap's just being a time displaced kind of guy and not having a good history, which it also dovetails very well with Captain America: The Ultimates, although in a less douchey way.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of resetting, the Marvel time of basically Cap's only been around for 10 years or whatever. So, in then current continuity, he would have missed the Gulf War, because he hasn't been back that long. So it's saying hey, all my memories are, from before this, and having a bunch of comic book, the Invaders comic and all these other things where they've gone back to Cap in the 40s. He has all these different versions of what happened where he's like, wait, is that right? Which is, I think, an interesting idea. But yeah, so the second issue is, it does set up what this is going to be. It is probably the slowest issue because there's a bunch of fighting and the rest of it for the most part.
Yeah, honestly, 3 felt a little bit like that for me as well, although there are a bunch more of the big sweeping kind of action sequences where there's a whole lot of action happening. And they're, again, really well drawn, but not a lot of moving forward any of the mystery or anything like that. Until we get closer...
It's again, it's a post, 9/11 world. There's a minor Captain American villain, Mother Night, who gets shot or machine gunned off camera, and they just find her corpse, and you're just like, geez, this kind of stuff that didn't used to happen in Marvel Comics very often, where you just see a terrorist just get murdered by a different terrorist.
Yeah, I do wonder about that being if I was a Captain America fan before this. Brubaker mows through a lot of Captain America former characters, and he just kills them off, either off screen or on screen, pretty quickly. And I kind of wonder, if I was a fan of this time, would I have been upset about that?
I mean, because I think the difference between what Brubaker does and Mark Millar or even Bendis with Disassembled, which stinks, is that he's showing he actually knows what he's doing. When Dr. Faustus, I guess spoiler when we get to those Captain America issues, minor 70s villain Dr. Faustus returns. He's treated as a big deal, and it's very cool that it's oh, you actually know who this guy is. By the 2000s, Wikipedia and the Marvel Appendix website exists, so you can more easily do the referencing on who is this guy, what's going on. So I do feel like there's stuff for the fans. We'll get to it in issue 7, but there's a lot of wrapping up of a 90s series nobody remembers that shows oh, he actually cared enough to even know what that series was about, a book nobody remembers. I don't even think it's on Marvel Unlimited.
Oh wow. Okay.
Wow. But I mean, it does work as a one and done story, though. If it's meant to be a wrap up for something else, it's entertaining enough on its own. But yeah, we'll get to that. This issue does kind of end with a big fight with AIM in France, and it's on the news. And there's a guy in a bar watching it, and he's like, "Hey, I know that guy. I used to work with him. I was his partner." And it's Jack Monroe. I think they name him.
Yeah, they do. They say his name.
And someone shows up. Oh, that guy names him. He's like, "Hey, you Jack Monroe?" And he's like, "Yeah, do I know you?" "No." And he kills him.
Yeah. That's the series I was referring to was Jack Monroe was in the series Nomad, which is kind of like a renegade type. If you remember that TV show from the 90s, he had a motorcycle. He had a baby that he was taking care of, and he drove around the Southwest fighting, mostly drug dealers and low-level criminals. And so they do reference that later. So that's I recognized him. I was like, oh, I know who that guy is. But then he's killed, and I was like, well, there he goes.
Yeah, he was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the second Bucky, the second Nomad after Cap was Nomad for a little while, and then he was Scourge as well. He mentioned.
Yeah, he gets a whole issue, the final issue of. What
we'll get into that. Yeah. So, but Monroe's prints are on the gun that killed the Red Skull. We're jumping into the next issue now, number 4. And Fury tells Sharon that, but he keeps it from Cap. He's like, I don't want to, tell him all this stuff here. They're still looking into everything. There's a file labeled Winter Soldier that they've got. And Cap goes, meanwhile, he sends Cap off to the destroyed graves of the next 2 people who were Captain America. After Captain America died, it was, I didn't write down their names, but one of them was the Spirit of 76 from way back in the day. And then there was another guy who took over after him. But
William Nasland and Jeffrey Mace is what the graves would say. Because and I like the history lesson here, and this I remember making me do a bit of history, because Captain America comics never stopped publishing after World War II. Like, obviously, in our movie continuity and even our comic continuity, he quote unquote died or froze at the end of World War II. Bucky died, and then he was revived in Avengers 4. And joined the team, but he had always been time displaced by at least 20 years, now closer to 50, 60 years.
I was say, not even 20 at the time. I guess almost 20.
Right. So so that's the continuity that we have. But Captain America was published through the 40s and the 50s, and then it was a retcon to say those were different dudes who were Captain America, to try to keep up appearances, which is a fun history lesson and I guess makes sense.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah. I'm into it too, like I am. And I like that Brubaker, like, he basically is now giving me a history lesson of, like, in where we're issue 4 or 5 now. He's giving me a history lesson of, like, these are all these other people who were Captain America, who are important to the Captain America mythos, in like 5 or 6 issues. It's really cool.
Right. And then, so then there's a kind of strange fight. It's probably my least favorite fight of the book, that Crossbones just shows up and beats the crap out of Cap. And it's very kind of confused. I guess it's because the memories are like overpowering him, but they don't really explain it. And then it's basically just like Crossbones beats him up for a while, and it's like, Cap is like, why did you deface those graves? And Crossbones is so offended that he's like, whatever, I'm leaving. Some Russian guy told me you'd be here. I didn't deface any graves. You suck. And just leaves.
I really like the way that Epting again draws Crossbones, because I feel like if I'd seen Crossbones in any other comic before this, I would be like, that's a really dumb looking villain. But like the detail of like his tactical vest and his mask somehow works here, and then Crossbones obviously becomes like a big deal in the movies, played by Frank Grillo. I can't remember what is it, Rulo? I don't remember what his name was in the movies, but definitely he became Crossbones in Winter Soldier and Civil War. So, and I was excited to see him in movies. Like, I know that guy, but I can imagine if I had seen him, I'd be like, I would have thought he was like a dumb, low level villain, like on the level of like Wrecking Crew, that may be endearing, but like also like I don't care about.
It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, I think he's a quality henchman. And he does a good job. Like I said, I just think it's my least favorite fight scene of the book.
It's like a definite like Deus Ex Machina. Like, I'm not gonna fight you like this. This is dumb. And then he leaves. Like, you could have killed Captain America. Like, what's your deal here, bud?
Yeah, he had a gun drawn, and he's like, it's not even worth it, and just leaves.
Yep.
Which, how about all the commuters? They're like, right around National Cemetery, like in DC area. Like all these commuters, just like, man, Captain America got his shit kicked in right in front of me as I was going home from work.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'd be crazy to see. I might stop and watch. Maybe I'd try and help Cap. I don't know. Maybe he'd make me the next Bucky. That'd be cool. It's hard to believe we're already like through 5 issues though. Like, it's been a while since we read a modern comic. I think that like just kind of flows this quickly.
Yeah, it definitely is, modern. I think I was reading this month to month. Maybe I got caught up on like the first 2 trades worth and started reading like issue 10 or so. But it's not a whole lot. Like, they're very quick reads. They look great. So I wouldn't be like, oh, this is too expensive. But they do read really fast.
This was one I read monthly, and read it and would read every single issue of the entire arc before the next issue came out. So that's where we were at. I really like this book.
Oh, wow. It's like marathoning the movies before the next one. Yeah.
Or, watching every episode of Breaking Bad that season before the next episode came out.
That's too much.
I would do it, though, like particularly for this.
It is fun because it's an interesting mystery. Obviously, we know what the mystery is now. It's Bucky getting revealed, but I think it's hard to say like how cool it is that they actually pulled it off. Because like the year before was Batman Hush, which people like, I think, in general, because Jim Lee's art is good, but Hush like teases Jason Todd's return, and then they get cold feet and they're like, no, actually it's not. And because like that's who a lot of people were thinking Hush would turn out to be. And then he does return as Clayface, pretending to be him. So they and then of course like 2 years later they bring him back anyway.
Ironically, Jason Todd and Bucky were revealed to be back the exact same month.
Whoa!
in real life.
I knew that.
Yeah, like it's they're connected for me because they're two deaths that the comic book fans, like Wizard Magazine would be like the least likely characters to be brought back.
Right.
Like number one would be like Uncle Ben, but like Bucky and Jason Todd would both be pretty high up there because like Jason Todd obviously famously was unpopular enough that people voted for his death. And then Bucky had just been dead for like 70 years.
Well, it was a weird, and it was again we said it's a retcon. Like, oh yeah, now Bucky's dead. What? Okay. Well, that's what they said in Avengers 4, which at some point we should probably check out and read. But it was really fun to read this in the moment, and of course, like we've got a couple issues left to talk about.
Yeah, we're getting sidetracked.
But Brubaker wrote in an exit button if it didn't pan out. Like the Cosmic Cube is there from the beginning. That if fans did not react well to this story, they could just say it was the Cosmic Cube and then let it go.
Yeah. Well, and especially he already had one escape route. Red Skull being dead, shockingly enough, doesn't last forever.
Right. Well, I think Brubaker brings him back even during his run.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was exactly what you're talking about. He has that Cosmic Cube in the first issue. You're not supposed to think it's impossible that he could have survived.
Yeah. Or some future writer could undo his problem.
Right, exactly. So anyway, yeah. So let's see where we're.
6.
Agent 13 is investigating. She gets sent to find Nomad, and then basically tracks him down to where he was last seen, and then the mystery figure that's been doing all this stuff knocks her out.
Right. Yeah, and there's a long flashback to some Russian town where
that's issue
Cap
5,
is remembering.
Yeah. Basically they said like, do you know this Lucan guy? And Cap's like, no, I don't know who that is. It's like, well, they said his mentor was Vasily Karpov, and he's like, I kind of remember working with that dude. From the Cronus Corporation. Like, oh shit, I was definitely at Cronus, in Russia. And so then we get a big Russian flashback, which which reminds me a lot of the book Sarah I just read, but this flashback doesn't have Epting.
Yeah, no snipers in that book. It's a fun flashback. I also do think Brubaker is consciously reacting to Mark Millar's Ultimates, because Cap is constantly like the French were so brave, the French resistance was so good, like I would never insult France. And then in this issue, he's like, there's a whole bunch of like, I don't approve of your methods to the Russians. And they're like, dude, like Russia is horrible. All we have is a Russian winter. Like this is our strategic advantage, is that our winter is so horrible that only we're used to it.
Mm-hmm. We also get, this is where Cap mentions, hey, I was just like the face of the country. Bucky is the one who was trained to be a real killer. And like that kind of thing. I'm like, what? Was that always the case?
No, that is Brubaker's retcon. Because I think I want to say in the 40s comics, it's unclear, but Bucky could have been as young as like 8. Like
8?
Like murdering Nazis on the front lines.
More like 14, I think.
Yeah,
I would say no younger than 14.
But still, we shouldn't be sending 14-year-olds behind enemy lines. So Brubaker is doing some creative fudging of the numbers. Like, I mean, that's how he was marketed. But Bucky was a stone cold motherfucking killer. Is Brubaker's retcon of this, which I think works.
And it's again, like I think I read this already knowing the twist, but if I didn't, I don't think I would have guessed. They're doing so much work to be like Bucky was actually awesome. Like he was not just a mascot; he was this like special ops, guy that would sneak up on you and slit your throat kind of character. That then later, when it's revealed that Bucky is alive and has been a killer, you're like, oh, okay.
Right. I mean, all this, like, I didn't know it was happening, and I read it in real time. I just assumed it was flashback character flavoring, the way that Batman's past and his parents' murder is brought up every 8 issues, and Uncle Ben's death is brought up every 8 issues to say, like, this is why I'm a hero, and this is what motivates me. Like, I thought that that's what these scenes were doing as part of, like, a new writer's run, just to, like, reset those expectations of, like, this is, like, my greatest failure, and this is why I fight, kind of stuff. Like, that's what I thought it was there for.
Right. It does. I do think it does a great job of tricking you, that it's set up like if you're new to Captain America completely, you're like, boy, there's flashbacks about Bucky in every issue, huh?
Yeah. I should have picked up on it, but I just figured Brubaker just wanted to write World War II comics, which also tracks with him. But
do you think Batman's parents will ever come back as babies on Batman's hands? That's good. Yeah, okay.
I mean, like Spider-Man's parents came back briefly in the 90s. That was not good.
Were they babies on his hands?
No, they were
chameleon robots, right?
Yeah, they were chameleon spies. We'll get to chameleon later. So anyway, I guess he's getting these worse and worse flashbacks. They're like interfering with him. He's like, something's messing with me. For some reason, I have to go to the castle where I got frozen. I don't know how that's going to help. So he goes to like this DuckTales castle.
So that's like issue 6 where he heads there, but at the end of issue 5, we do see Nick Fury like with just talking to more people like, this news is gonna shatter Cap's world. I can't tell him yet.
Duggan, Dum Duggan is like, you didn't tell him that, the file about our new intel. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna give him a minute until we're 100% sure.
Yeah. And Lucan was like a kid at this town Cronus that was destroyed by the Nazis, and the Russians were trying to steal the Nazi super weapon, and it got blown up before the Russians could steal it, which Cap was like, y'all shouldn't take this Nazi super weapon. And like, fuck you, like, we're Russian and we got fucking nothing, we got no goddamn heroes, we got no supermen, like, let us have this goddamn weapon. And it blew up, so they blame Captain America, and they're mad at him for shit that happened 70 years ago.
I guess
that's fair.
I guess it's a stretch, but that's where Lucan's like personal vendetta comes in.
Right. I'm still mad at Cap for shit he did 70 years ago to me, so I get it. Issue number 6, he's there at that castle. It's a lot of flashbacks to him and Bucky like getting tortured in that castle as well, which I'm like, oh boy, yeah.
Right. And at first he's like, that's not true. That must be a false memory. And then like he finds like the dungeon or whatever. He's like, oh, I guess it did happen, and I just blocked it out. That's weird.
Mm-hmm. By the time he's kind of done going through all this, he realizes, I'm not sure how he realizes that Sharon has been captured. Is it just like he gets a brain thing and he's like, it's his spider sense goes off? And he's like,
Fury tells him.
No, I think he is right. I think it's literally he just sees an image of it and is like, oh, okay. And so then when he calls Fury's like, well, it's a trap, right? Yeah. He's like, yes, okay, you're right. Yes, I do.
So I imagine this is more brain stuff that's happening with regards to his memories. I don't know. But he's like, yeah, I got to go get Sharon. He's like on his way there before he's even contacted Nick Fury about it. And Nick Fury says, wait, I have some important news to tell you about. And Cap says, no time. And he rescues Bucky. He rescues Sharon, who's like, I've seen the guy. I think it was Bucky. And we see him like with a gun. Who's he talking to, Bucky? He's talking to Lucan, who's like, no, don't kill him. And so I don't know what the trap was. Oh, they explode some shield building, right? Where there's a random computer guy.
Yeah. They were still trying to frame what's his name? The second Bucky. But I guess
Jack Monroe.
Yeah, they spoil, I guess, the most of his plans. A bomb goes off, killing some shield people, but that's about it.
I think that is about it. I read this in real time, and then the comic said like Bucky's back in for real, and I was like, no, this is like a fake or something. I think though that the way the book presents this is, I think, a big misstep that's not the cliffhanger. The line I think it's Bucky is not the cliffhanger. They reveal that it's Bucky, and then have an explosion, and then Lucan saying like, my game plan is now like my game is now in play or some nonsense like that.
Right. We see him with the cosmic cube, so we
all knew. I mean, we knew he had the cube. It's not like that's a surprise.
Right. I feel like flipping after the explosion, Sharon telling it's Bucky, I think would do a lot more to like sell this cliffhanger to me, because I didn't buy it at the time. It's just it's kind of like that's a weird. Fair. Especially because in the next issue we're gonna get like an interlude. I think that flipping around those things is just like, it's a weird misstep to not make that your cliffhanger, and also put the words like I think makes it unclear as opposed to like, no, this is definitively Bucky.
Yeah, and Cap never even sees him. Yeah, I would I would maybe do that scene a little differently, but it's still, it's a great introduction. I am excited to talk about this last issue because I do think it's secretly really good.
It's probably my favorite of these that we've read today. Actually,
Yeah.
There's no Cap in it, barely, like maybe some flashbacks here and there, but it's all about Jack Monroe and his sort of, yeah. Well, do you want to set it up, Chris? You're real excited about it.
Sure. Yeah, it's different. It's the artist John Paul Leon, right? Does this issue. It's different art. It's the guy that did Earth X, actually. Which we may do that book one day. I don't know if it holds up, but anyway. So this is all explaining what happened to Jack Monroe, who we saw get shot pretty unceremoniously in issue 3 or 4.
3, yeah.
So we're finding out like he goes to, and it's actually Jane Foster, right, from
Natalie
Thor.
Portman.
Yeah. Natalie Portman herself is like basically the super soldier serum they gave you is giving you an autoimmune disorder that is driving you insane and killing you. So you only have months to live.
Yeah, and he's getting real down on himself of like, oh, I was bad at being a superhero. I couldn't live up to these other names. I couldn't even make my own name for myself. But you know what? If I'm going to be dying, Natalie Portman told me I should go looking for my friends and family, finish up my business. So I'm going to go look for my adopted daughter named Bucky, right? But she's with a different family now. He like tracks her down, doesn't want to interrupt her new life, but he does overhear that there's drug dealers in the area that are, dealing to the kids at her school and like trying to, oh my God, he's like, I can't have any of this. At the very least, maybe I can protect her from afar. And so his last year alive is spent trying to track down these criminals and make sure that they can't harm his daughter, which, it's a fun little story of him just kind of going around trying to track everybody down, beating people up little by little.
And in the meantime, like you can tell, like he's admitting I think it's a really fun, it's so rare in comics that you have like an unreliable, narrator.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm losing time. He's seeing Bucky like in the mirror, like taunting him, and he's having these like drug-like freakouts where he's like, I can tell I'm going insane, but I'm okay right now. Everything's fine. I know that I'm beating up these drug dealers, and this is the right thing to do. And it's very interesting because you're just like, okay, buddy, seems like you're not okay.
Yeah. It's like months at a time that he's just like, wait a minute, what's going on? Is it 3 months later now? Okay. And so he's beating up all these drug dealers that he's finding. And little by little, we start to see, we do see these scenes of the madness as well. The one with this is my panel of the week here with it's just wild. There's like pills in his mouth. There's like Bucky ripping him in half.
It looks like it's pills in his mouth, but it's actually Bucky's fingers coming out of his mouth as he tears through. It's so gross.
That is gross. I love it. And he finally is like, he gets the scoop on where these bad guys are going to be, but you very definitively see that he's like torturing some guy. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And he finally gets the news he wants. But as he's walking away, the art shifts to where it's like, no, he wasn't beating up drug dealers. These were just civilians that he's been beating up. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting, like the Nomad costume is like, so even by the 80s when it was introduced, it's very stupid looking. So he's fighting these like 80s drug dealers that, have these like patches on their jackets and all this stuff. And then as he's walking away, they're just like regular guys.
Yeah. That's sad. And then he's like waiting at this bar for the drop of like the final big time drug dealer that he's been hearing about trying to get. And that's when Bucky shows up and kills him. And then like the best little touch at the end is that the drug dealers do show up, but it's like a guy who drives an ice cream truck and he's talking about how the kids just eat it all up and he like makes a ton of money off of them. And it's like, oh, so sad. Yeah,
he spent like the last 6 months of his life fighting an ice cream seller.
I'm worried. I'm also confused about his daughter in that adopting situation because I guess he adopted this daughter and named her Bucky, but then she got adopted again by another family and now has a different name. So has this poor little girl had 3 names? Did they
Right.
just like keep changing her name? What's going on?
I mean,
here?
that's actually
she was a baby in the Nomad series in like 1991. One of the Fabian Nicieza, however you say his names, one of his first books was Nomad. He actually, I read in Marvel: The Untold Story, he wanted to give him HIV, and Marvel's editors were like, "We're not giving even a C-list hero HIV."
Wow. Vince, were you saying something?
And that's actually a pretty common thing with like adoptive people, especially if they're taken out of dangerous situations, is when they're adopted to change their name, so then their abusive parents can't track them down.
Okay.
To bring it to realism.
Well, Jack Monroe was able to do it anyways. Good for him.
Yeah, I know the system isn't perfect.
Yeah.
This book reads weirdly like a criminal issue to me.
Absolutely.
It's got the same lettering
like,
with the typewriter narration boxes, and then like the daughter he doesn't talk to. Like it's very, very criminal.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But no, I mean it's great. There's a reason this is one of the really well remembered ones. It's super well written. Beautiful art. If you haven't read these, I do recommend them. They're pretty quick, and we will eventually finish. I think our plan is that over the course of the next few episodes, there's a lot of short stuff that we've wanted to read, and we've read most of it. So now that's like there's longer series.
Yeah, but there's also like I think that this run. I mean, and this is like my favorite run of comics. I think of like superhero comics ever, which is why I've waited so long to cover it because I just didn't want to, But I think that this book is near perfect for 42 issues, and then I think it falls off pretty precipitously. But for 42 issues, it's really, really good.
There is a lot of table, I don't know, resetting in the last few issues, but yeah, it's a great run. And yeah, I do, like I said, I think this Nomad issue is so good because he's able to mine like, a minor character that has these absurd storylines associated with him. He's like, I was the 50s Bucky, I got frozen, I got unfrozen in the 70s to fight Cap, but then I joined him. And you're like, wait, what? Like it's all so absurd, but it's grounded in this like real emotion that I think really works, that you feel really sad that this like character that I'm guessing Vince and Kia you had never seen before, when you get new information about his death, you're like, oh, that's very sad.
Yeah, that's what my question though was of like, I think like this is a really good story, but if I was a Jack Monroe fan, would I have been upset by this? Because I'm definitely very upset with modern Phil Urich stories, which is stupid because Phil Urich is a bullshit character and whatever. But I get really upset when Phil Urich is depicted incorrectly. And I wonder if
that Golden Goblin was stupid. But and Felicia Hardy being a villain in like the mid 2010s, stupid.
But so like I wonder if like there's any Jack Monroe fans that are like, man, he got jobbed out and is crazy. And would be upset by
I don't know if there's any Jack Monroe fans, period. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, maybe there's people fans of that 90s series, but like as he pointed out, like the last time he had even been in a book was in Busiek's, or actually I think it was already Fabian's Thunderbolts, when he came back as Scourge. That was like 2000 or 1999.
Maybe that's why I'd heard of him. Yeah. Okay.
That's the only time he'd been like in any comic in like the last 5 years. So it's not like he was a regular, even supporting cast member. But I do think he has enough pathos that I don't know. I can't imagine being like, oh, they really did him like horrible, because they also, he ties in the fact that he's losing his mind is like, yes, he was introduced as like, this is an unstable version of Captain America and Bucky. And then like the symmetry of Bucky killing him, like he actually sees Bucky as Bucky when he's murdered. I love that issue, and I think this is a great run and a great introduction to it. Like we've I think been pretty effusive about it, but I do think like that post 9/11, making it more of a like he's this counter-terrorist, action hero actually works better than like anything Cap had been doing for a long time.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think we even talked about it, but like the rest of the supporting cast is also not super trustworthy. Like Fury sent Cap on a mission because he wanted Sharon to look at something, in town. You know what I'm saying? Like Fury knows more than he's telling Cap. And he's not necessarily protecting Cap either. He's protecting his own interests. And I really like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's a good, kind of spy story. I think it's a lot of fun. I do think, there's some missed potential as it goes on, but later they introduce Falcon and he's great. And obviously it got turned into Captain America Winter Soldier like what 10 years later after it's written, which is insane.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
and relatively faithful. Um, all things considered. I mean,
Yeah.
Robert Redford's obviously not in that, but in the comics, but and Lucan's nowhere to be found. But yeah, there's a lot of these beats, and the tone is very, very similar to this comic.
Yeah.
Super similar.
That second Captain America being this like spy thriller. I think the third one kind of stinks.
Yeah, it
but
does.
the second one is just like it's a lot of fun. It's this like espionage thriller, and yeah, the art here is great. This is a great book. I am glad to have reread it, and I am excited to keep rereading more of it. I think this is probably the best Captain America run like ever because I don't think he's
Mhm.
got that many great ones. I think Mark Waid, of course, has a pretty famous one, and then Mark Grunwald had a very long one that's up and down. But
People like the Englehart run also, right?
people do.
Okay. I do
And,
know that like the second Brubaker left this book, and I feel like it was tapering in the last year when he started right before he went independent. Like the second like it ended and Rick Remender took over, and Rick Remender is a good art writer. I was like, I'm out. I don't need to read Captain America ever again. I'm done. So
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it also didn't help that like Winter Soldier immediately got his own like spin-off book that was much better than Cap.
yeah, that also is true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's the problem I think with resetting is this book has so many new ideas that as it goes on and you're like, Winter Soldier, he's the guy I want to read about because he doesn't have all the
to be fair, we know where I don't know if we all know where this is going, but like also Brubaker becomes less and less interested in Steve Rogers to the point where he writes him out of the book. So
which I think was probably the plan all along, but when Civil War happens, that's kind of his excuse to get him out of the book.
yeah, you could definitely tell like around like issue like 14, it's like Brubaker does not care about Steve Rogers at all.
Yeah. So
That's fine. Neither do I, so it's okay.
yeah, exactly. I think
we'll
in a
get
lot
there
of ways
someday,
he's more interesting as a supporting character.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll definitely continue reading these probably within the next few months. We'll get into the second volume of Brubaker's run here. But for now, I think it is time for us to jump into Amazing Spider-Man. We ready for this?
Yeah. This
I
is
think
fun.
so. Yeah, so we have read Amazing Fantasy in the past. I don't remember what for in particular.
We read it when Stan Lee passed away, so that would have been like end of 2018, beginning of 2019, thereabouts. So it's been about 2 years. We read a lot of number ones by Stan Lee. So I think we read maybe Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Amazing Fantasy 15. So we've got Spider-Man's 8-page origin, and we're going to be reading his first year, and then we'll drop off and figure out what else is our long read. But we're going to read the first 12 issues of Amazing Spider-Man and see where that takes us.
Yeah, so we read the first one. It's like a 2-in-1. There's 2 stories in this.
That was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, feature-length Spider-Man thrillers. It's big. And, we start with a quick little splash page of like, hey, it's going to be Spider-Man. Look at all these people pointing fingers at him and they hate him. But then the first panel of the actual story is Spider-Man throwing away his costume, saying, I wish I'm never going to be Spider-Man again, which is wonderful. A wonderful first panel of the story here.
This is a mild inversion of Amazing Fantasy 15. I think people loved him, right? He was like a big TV star. Everyone was a fan. Like we established in this issue that like Peter and Aunt May have no fucking money because their main wage owner Uncle Ben has been murdered. And Spider-Man has brought him nothing but pain, and people hate Spider-Man because we get J. Jonah Jameson in this first issue.
Yeah, we get everything. So he realizes, okay, I still need to make some money. I'm going to use the suit to keep doing this wrestling thing, this performance stuff that I've been doing. Then the guy is like, hey, I need a check, a name to put on this check for you. And he's like, yeah, just make it out to Spider-Man.
It's not really clear to me what is this show. Like all the teenagers go see him, and it's like, what are you watching for like a half an hour? Like Spider-Man's just doing like web tricks.
Is it like I picture it as a Cirque du Soleil Broadway show, where he's like, maybe like a David Copperfield magician show. Man, I'm dating myself with David. I don't know who else magicians do stage shows.
But he's also like 15 years old and like a nerd. Like, how does he know like how to put a show on?
Yeah. I don't know.
I really have to. I'd like to read the reviews from not the Daily Bugle, from a objective paper about like this was a really stupid show. I don't know what Spider-Man's doing. I liked it better when he was wrestling.
Well, I have a feeling that the Daily Bugle art section operates pretty independently of J. Jonah Jameson. I don't think he cares too much about what they print in there.
That's true. We don't even know who like the editor of the art section is.
My notes were like, man, I'm glad that this book really tied into like the realism of like the fact that like they can't cash a check out to Spider-Man. All those jokes that we would have, on the playground and stuff like, or like in the movie Clerks, like they can't cash a check to Spider-Man. And then like first issue, like they lampshade that. They're like, yeah, I can't do that. But now y'all are going way deeper into who's the arts editor of the Daily Bugle.
Yes, these are the important questions. But yeah,
they're very important.
I do think it's funny that again, like he sets up with this like scummy agent who's like, we're W2 Spider-Man. It's just like really, I would think he's like a carny and he would pay him in cash. Like,
yeah, I mean, it seems
to avoid taxes all across the
whole
board.
Time.
Yes,
better for everybody.
Yes, exactly. Like it's like a pop-up, where it's just like, hey, one night only Spider-Man.
But it really does turn into like a one night only thing. He's not able to even come back to make more checks that he can't cash because J. Jonah Jameson is now writing these pieces about him. Like, oh, this guy's taking the law into his own hands. It's a bad influence. We gotta get him off the streets.
Why is Jameson mad at him? Is it because he caught the burglar from?
I think it's because all the kids, they don't like a real hero like his son.
Yeah, they need to grow up to be. Like, not selfish freaks such as Spider-Man, a masked menace who refuses to even let us know his true identity.
So is he just mad at like Billie Eilish like taking away from a real American hero? Is that like what?
Yes. Like he would 100% be like sharing those boomer memes. That's like, here's a Kardashian and here's an astronaut you've never heard of. Guess which one's more famous? Like that's 100%. But with him, it's even more because it's like my son, the astronaut. So it's like he has a vested interest in you liking this astronaut.
Yeah, he keeps pushing this astronaut on us. We're not into it, man. So now Spider-Man just can't even perform. He's like reading the paper and like, geez, why is the Fantastic Four so popular? And
that's the second story. Yeah.
No, it's in this where he's like reading the papers and he's like, oh, I wish I was as popular as them.
Which is again like a Clerk style like playground conversation of like, how come everybody loves these heroes but hates Spider-Man and hates the X-Men? It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And this first issue,
Spider-Man wears a mask. Spider-Man wears a mask.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I never understood why people didn't get like, why are the X-Men considered different? Like, just imagine if the X-Men were all considered to be like Muslim. Like, it's pretty easy to be like,
there you go.
Why would you be scared of them?
Why there would be stupid people that would make that distinction? Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, they're different and scary. I don't like that. Versus the familiar and friendly family, the Fantastic Four, who have a hot blonde woman on the team.
And a scary rock monster.
Yes, and a scary rock monster who smokes cigars and has a old-timey accent, which makes him good. He's like a Archie Bunker character. So yes, Spider-Man. He is foiled in his attempts to make money or be popular. Then I guess for some reason he goes to see a rocket take off as teenagers
he does see. I like how mad he gets though during that when he's like reading the paper and everything. He sees Aunt May pawning her jewelry to make money. He gets so mad at this. He's like hitting a wall. Like, I wish I could do something.
I love that detail though. Like, I mean, that's very realistic. Good. Like Aunt May, really like proactively, like I need money and this is what I unfortunately have to do. I really like that detail. It gives Aunt May some agency, independent of Peter, also.
Right, but Peter at the same time, even though he's like 15 years old, is like, this is my fault. It's like, not really,
Yeah, you're fine, man. You're fine. So this rocket launch is going on. That my son, the astronaut, is in the ship, but there's a problem. Something goes haywire. Oh no! And so Spider-Man, goes to the rescue, helps rescue John Jameson from the thing. And of course, afterwards,
from the spaceship, not from the thing.
From the spaceship. It's an action sequence kind of deal.
It is funny too because again, like you're saying, Vince, like it has all those scenes you expect in like Silver Age comics where he's like, "Oh, I need to borrow this jet," and they're like, "Show some ID, Spider-Man," and he just webs him up and runs away.
Yep.
And then they help him, but later Jameson is like, and he broke on into the airbase, and he webbed up that guy.
Yeah, and it was his fault that the thing went haywire in the first place, which it wasn't.
Yeah, that part's not true. But the rest of it, he's like, yeah, he's right. He did just break into a military base.
Like, and okay, so that's basically the first story. J. Jonah Jameson is still mad at him, even though he's like, everyone's gonna love me now. That's not gonna happen.
I do like that this is like an interesting display of Peter's powers before like we like fully established them. Like he's like webbing down space capsules, like out in fields and stuff. He's not. I don't think he's He's like webs between skyscrapers at all in this issue. Like the classic like Spider-Man web swinging. It's like it's a different type of imagery.
We'll get to it in the next story, but he does something that you never see him do to start the issue, where people are like, "Wow, he's like a spider." Where I was like, "He can do this."
Yeah, he so in this second story, he wants to go meet the Fantastic Four because he's like, "Hey, I want to join them. I need to make some money. I'm gonna get a job and be on the team of the Fantastic Four." And like he's walking up to their building like a tightrope that he made out of his webs, which is like, okay, he doesn't do that often enough. It's pretty good. Less dangerous than swinging, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Like they should put that in a video game.
Oh, that's a really good one. That is a good power. Yeah.
But like, honestly, the 2018 game does have you like walk tightropes all the time, but you should be able to web them yourself to get to places you can't otherwise get to.
It's a zipline power. They put that in Uncharted and Tomb Raider. Yeah, you could just do that. Like, here's a zipline point. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Spider-Man does not do the best job of making a good first impression with the Fantastic Four because he breaks in, and they're like, "Whoa, who's this guy?" They trap him, and he's like busting out, fighting with the thing, causing a mess. And it's like, "Hey, I'm here to join y'all," and they say, "What? We don't have a salary. This is a non-profit organization." And he's like, "Fuck this, I'm out of here." He leaves.
Okay, I don't know. Isn't there a staff at the Baxter Building, or is that not established by this point in Fantastic Four continuity?
I mean, they're at the top of an office building, but he does point out like, oh, I can't, the elevator is only for the Fantastic Four. So
yeah, I can't get in. I gotta go up the outside.
I feel like they have employees though in that building that they pay for.
Yeah, he could have asked. He could have made an appointment.
Well, they like an internship. That. I don't know, something.
Yeah, they even say, and they should have offered him as he's leaving. They're like, oh, well, what should we do?
But Spider-Man is very brash. He just like he's very brash in this whole episode. He's just like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this.
Yeah, you talked about this, Chris, that this is basically like an arc of like a kid. He's not like an everyman. He's an absolute asshole that's going to learn to be less of an asshole over time.
Yeah, he's a teenager, and like it's funny, he calls himself Spider-Man. Like J. Jonah Jameson never seems to know that he's a kid, but like the second he starts talking, like Reed and everyone else are like, that's a teenager. Like he's just a boy. Like they're immediately like recognizing that like he's got to be like Johnny's age because he does not seem mature at all. Which I think is very funny that like he is trying to be an adult, but it's that thing where you're like 15 or 16 where the more you're trying, the more you're like, it's very obvious you're not an adult.
I don't think I would have picked up on that if I had been reading this as a kid. I don't think I would have.
No, I don't, and I don't even know how much it's intentional because like superheroes are always a little bit like this, like just get in fights for no reason.
Yeah.
But it reads so well that he's like so immature and he doesn't really know what he's doing, which I think it works in the movies and most adaptations that he is this like antisocial weirdo at the start who has to kind of learn to be an adult. It's a lot of fun, and then he leaves in a huff and is like, "I'll show them."
Yep. So meanwhile, we meet the Chameleon. Oh, he's our first real Spider-Man villain that we meet, if you don't count J. Jonah Jameson.
Burglar.
Or the burglar who killed Uncle Ben. Sure, this is like the first super villain.
This is part of the Rogues Gallery, who I guess Chameleon's still not been in a movie, so.
Interesting.
He's in like every cartoon version, I think.
That's my thing about like Spider-Man has a deep bench more than like any other villain. Like, we
never got Hydro Man in the movies.
We've never gotten Hydro Man, but he also has only repeated the Green Goblin throughout any of his movies. Like Batman, every Batman continuity eventually is going to find the Joker again, or Two-Face or Catwoman. But like Yeah, only Green Goblin's been repeated.
So the Chameleon, the Chameleon's powers are pretty vague, but he does like to dress up as other people using all of his, fancy makeups and masks and all that.
But he is much more makeup, mask, wig in this universe than like the cartoon. I remember just like pushing a button and like he looked like whoever.
Right. And he must be a pretty good science guy because he wants to peg his latest crime on Spider-Man. And so he sends a message that only his spider senses will be able to pick up. I don't know how he does.
Sure, that makes sense.
But he does.
There's a lot of reliance on spider sense in this story.
He sends the message on the spider waves. And Spider-Man picks it up. He says, "Oh, someone's trying to contact Spider-Man. What's the message? Calling Spider-Man. Meet me on roof of Lark Building at 10 tonight. It will be very profitable for you." Which, how did he know Spider-Man needs money? That's like perfect.
I guess seeing Spider-Man leave the Fantastic Four, he's like, he must need money. I'm like, really?
For cash. So right before Spider-Man shows up, the Chameleon goes in dressed as Spider-Man, stealing a bunch of plans, webbing up a bunch of people.
I love
gets
this.
in a helicopter.
This is a great detail, by the way, because I remember, Chris, I remember you telling me that when Spider-Man was first proposed, they suggested a web gun rather than web
Jack
shooters.
Kirby's design had like a web gun.
So and the Chameleon Spider-Man has a web gun, and I think I don't know how intentional that is, but I feel like it has to be.
I think it had to be, that they're just reusing this idea. And then Chameleon even points out, like, it's not as good as Spider-Man's webs.
Yep.
That's a real Ditko moment, I guess. Like, my idea is way better, right?
So Spider-Man lands on the roof after all this is done, and the cops come up on the roof, and they're like, "Hey, there he is. Let's get him." And he goes, "What?" And webs him up, and he goes, "Okay, I shouldn't be here. I'm going to go after that helicopter instead." And he slingshots himself up towards the helicopter with his web. That was pretty good. And then he makes a web parachute. Yeah, it's nice.
This is definitely a first issue of like, these are all the different ways we could potentially use our powers.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. And, he stops the Chameleon, and he's like there with the cops, and the cops are like, "Hey, you're not going to trick us again, Chameleon. We know that's you in the Spider-Man costume." And they try to get him, and he goes, "No, y'all fucked up again. Fuck it, I'm out of here. Y'all can catch him on your own."
It's so funny because Ditko, like, you can tell he's from this like weird science kind of background. Like, there's like no fighting. Like, it's all webs and weird stuff. Like, the fight itself is like nothing. It's kind of funny that, like, I don't know if he's not good at it or if he'd just rather do all these weird sciencey things.
Yeah.
But like that seems to be the focus of the whole. I mean, there is that fight with the Fantastic Four, but like it's not like a Jack Kirby fight at all. Like it's very strange. It all seems off model for some reason. I mean, Thing is off model, but yeah, it's just funny that he doesn't even really fight the Chameleon. He basically just like catches his helicopter and then makes him land, and then they have like this silly scene that keeps going where Chameleon is like, "I'm one of the guards. Chameleon turned into Spider-Man again." And everyone's like, "Well, you won't get away with it this time," and grab Spider-Man. I was like, come on, guys.
Yeah. That might be why, despite there's so much that happens in this 10-page second story, because he meets the whole Fantastic Four and does this whole Chameleon thing all in 10 pages. And it's probably because there's no fights. And that's not taking up panels.
It's like part of one page of a fight with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Fantastic Four like sees this stuff in the papers, and they're like, "Wow, he's so powerful." And that's it. They're
he's
just
so
like,
awesome. I hope we see more of him. Please buy our next issue.
It is funny. It does feel like they wrote two like segments as like this is going to be like the backup or even the feature of like a mixed magazine of stuff. But they're like, no, all of it, put it all together. We're selling Spider-Man books right now.
Because Amazing Fantasy ended with 15, like last issue. Dead.
Yes.
So this could have been like recurring strips, you think, in Amazing Fantasy 16 and 17, possibly?
Yeah, I think that might have been the original plan, but they're like, no, people love Spider-Man. Give them more Spider-Man right now.
Okay. All right. I'm with it.
So our second issue, I think, is another two-parter of like two different stories in one. And he meets aliens.
Yeah, we've got Vulture and aliens coming on deck.
Yeah.
One of these stories will be retconned, right?
Yes, the Vulture. It turned out wasn't really the Vulture. No, it was the aliens.
Oh, and then so yeah, that's what we've got going on next time. I'm excited to read some of these again and take a closer look at them. I've read them a while back.
I've never read them. This is super interesting to me.
I mean, they are dense and they're super interesting, and I hesitate to say it, but I think they might be good.
They're different. They're way different than what I was expecting from early issues of Spider-Man. Because the art also looks like an old comic. It looks like the 40s Batman stuff that we read, like Detective Comics. Like the way the art is just drawn and colored at this point. But then there's a touch of like different to it that I think I really like. So.
Well, we're going to see more of it next time, issue number 2. We're also go ahead.
Hopefully, meet more of his friends. We met J. Jonah Jameson this issue. There are more characters to be introduced. Obviously, Flash Thompson was an Amazing Fantasy, but I guess the big one that I don't think has really been introduced is Betty Brant. We'll eventually get to her. I don't know if she's in 2 or 3, but she's coming.
Betty, the whole cast of the Bugle, Harry. I'm assuming the Osborns will show up at some point, maybe in this first year.
I don't know if they're in the first year or not.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe Harry, but not Norman. I'm not sure.
Interesting. We'll find out. I'm excited to read this, though. I think this was a good pick.
Yeah. And next time, what else are we reading? Next time it's going to be our April Fool's episode. We're getting close to April Fool's. We're doing something silly team up here. We got Batman teaming up with, get this, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What? Yeah, they had a team up on the streets. 2015 6-issue miniseries, and they did a couple sequels as well. But we are just reading that first Batman Ninja Turtles team up.
Also has a cartoon and a full animated film that I've seen.
They made it into an animated film here. Yeah, we've seen some pictures of it. I have. It looks pretty neat with all the ooze and Batman's Rogues Gallery getting into it. So I'm excited to see what happens there.
I love any Batman story where all of his Rogues Gallery shows up. So I feel like that'll be good.
It's good stuff.
I see Shredder on one cover. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, I'm excited. Do we have a creative team for this? Anybody worth mentioning right now?
James Tynion the Fourth and Freddie E. Williams the Second. Freddie Williams, I think, was a Flash artist around the New 52, but I may be thinking of Francis Manipool. I may be thinking of Freddie Williams.
Jeez, between the 4th and the 2nd, we got 6 generations of talent behind this. I'm excited.
Wow.
I'm excited.
Freddie Williams.
Cool.
Teenage Mutant Batman Ninja Turtles 1 by James Tynion 4 and Freddie Williams the Second. Yeah, he did Seven Soldiers, Mr. Miracle, Kia. You might know him from that. And he also did Robin. Okay. That's what I remember him from.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that next time. What else is going on? Chris, how's your Stupid Minds going?
It's going good. We just did. We released our Angelina Jolie Cyborg movie a couple of weeks ago. We will have an episode coming out probably a week or 2 after this one that has not been recorded yet, so I can't talk about it too much.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Vince, anything with you?
You can check out our YouTube channel. All my friends are right here. Every episode of this show is on there, as well as I've got a video series going back and looking at weird video games. Specifically, I'm looking at Mario spin-offs right now. So I did an episode a couple weeks ago on Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS, and I'm currently working on Wario Blast for the original Game Boy, which is just a Bomberman game that they took out Bomberman Sprite and put Wario's in. So it's a Bomberman game with Wario.
Never even heard of that.
Wow. It's very weird.
Cool. Speaking of video games, I got myself a new capture card, so I should be able to start streaming some PS4 stuff now. I was having trouble with that before. But you can catch me on Twitch, Kiarrash, Kiarrash, 3 R's. It's so fun to say RRR. I don't know. Sound like a little puppy.
Or 3 pirates.
Or one pirate trying to pretend like he's 3 pirates. That's not doing a great job making himself look better than he is. So catch us there doing that. I think that's it for this episode. Vince, I love you.
Love you too.
Chris, I love you.
I don't remember that happening.
Oh no! And I'm Kia. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.